Welcome, creepy guys, ghoulish gals, and all you beautiful creatures of the horror fandom. You're listening to My Horror History, the podcast where we explore how horror movies shape us, scare us, and sometimes save us. I'm your host, Bev Chew, and each month I sit down with a fellow horror lover to talk about their personal journey into the genre. This isn't about being an expert, it's about sharing memories, opinions, and the emotional connection we have with the films that haunt us in the best ways. This episode, I'm joined by the one and only Mark Reid, former host of the Creative Psychopaths podcast, where each episode was served up like a horror sandwich. The intro and the outro were bread, and the middle was deliciously fun and informative discussion about horror films. Today, Mark's here not as the host, but as a guest to share his own horror history and the films that carved their way into his psyche. So pin back your ears, settle in, and let's dive into another story from the dark side. Hi, Mark. How are you doing today?
Yeah, hi. It's a bit too warm. Basically, I personally am fine, but I've got that sort of sheen, that sort of shiny, sticky sheen. That's always fun.
Yeah,
Um,
I get you.
we don't do well
Um,
here in the UK.
no, and I'm not sure when this episode's going to be going out, but we're recording this episode in the beginning of July 25, and in the UK we're currently going through a heat wave. And as Mark said, we don't do heat waves in the UK. We don't know how to cope with anything other than rain, and sometimes we don't know how to cope with that either.
No, yeah, very true.
Yeah.
We're a nation of weather haters.
Yeah, although we love to talk about nothing else.
Absolutely. Well, what else is there?
Indeed. So, Mark, let's start your horror journey, and let's start with, where did your journey into horror begin?
Well, I think it's quite a journey, quite a road to horror, really. I'd say it started with probably Poltergeist, actually, because that's the first movie I can remember really being scared of. I was too young to watch it, and yeah, it left me terrified for weeks on end. I couldn't even get in the bath. I ended up I ended up cleaning myself in the sink for quite a lot of time. I wasn't in the sink, obviously. It was back in the 80s. You used a flannel. You got your flannel wash on. Um,
Oh, yeah, I remember. How old were you when you saw it?
I don't really remember. I think I was about 8 or 10, something like that, and it was definitely too much for me. And it left me really scared of horror movies for such a long time. I remember at one point vaguely seeing the intro to Nightmare on Elm Street, and I couldn't even get through the intro to Nightmare on Elm Street. It was too scary. It's quite a scary little intro, actually. That with him making that glove, but that was enough for me. I don't want to. I don't
Hmm.
want to see any more of this gloved guy. Um, and I think I used to after that live my horror vicariously through others. Like I'd have friends at school who'd watch horror movies, and I'd get them explained to me. You know, plot by plot. I was getting live podcasts before it was even a thing, and it's just well, what was it like? And people would tell me very much about the Freddy sequels and stuff like that, and they'd always tell me they were fun, but I wasn't. I wasn't on board with that. Um,
No, I get you. I remember that it used. I remember that I used to watch film whatever year it was with Barry
mm,
Norman, and he was reviewing one of the Freddy movies, and I couldn't even watch the
yeah,
review
yeah.
because I was so scared about the clip. So I get you. So who would you say introduced you to horror?
I would say, yeah, probably my sister because it's got to go back to that that poltergeist thing. but she was always a big horror fan anyway, so she used to sort of have VHSs and stuff like that, and there'd often be something on that I'd watch. Well, I wouldn't watch, but I'd see it out of the corner of my eye. And I specifically remember one time we were over at where my nana lived, and she and my cousin were watching, and I think it was called City of the Dead. And I remember seeing a little bit of that, and it was too scary. But I think she certainly set me on the path to getting there. You know, I think after that, my true journey starts with the first Scream movie, um, which I just introduced myself because I became a real blockbuster guy. Just into blockbuster all the time.
Mm.
And I remember getting the Scream movie, watching it, and then I watched it sort of on repeat about 4 or 5 times because I just couldn't. It was just so good. And for that, I think I
Yeah,
mostly
yeah.
enjoyed the mystery element. So the fact that the first time I was like, oh, I wouldn't even. Well, I was thinking about who it might be, and then when you do find out who it is,
Mm.
the movie becomes a bit more interesting. I think, like a second time round, and I think that's certainly where I got my flavor for like, maybe I do like horror movies, so I would start dipping into things that I wouldn't have bothered to see. Um, and I mean, now I'm at the point where nothing affects me. Whenever, put it on.
That's good.
Yeah, yeah,
So that's where you'd say horror really stuck for you with Scream?
yeah. That's where it got it hooks into me. Um,
Mm.
for sure, for sure.
And so was Poltergeist the first horror film you ever saw, or was there anything scary before that?
Um, I'm thinking that I've got in my head. I was thinking about Poltergeist, but while I was writing it down, I thought to myself, I think I might have seen Teen Wolf before that. And
Mm.
while Teen Wolf isn't really a horror film, it sort of got me very interested in werewolves. Um, and I think I did find the transformation scene in that quite scary. You know,
Yeah, I mean, it skirts around the
yeah,
edges for sure. I
yeah,
love that
me
film.
too. Yeah, absolutely. Um, and remember, I don't know what the timeline is between having watched that and buying this toy. I know I was slightly too old for the toy, and I got a. I don't know if you remember what a werebear is. Um, but it's
Yeah, I remember them,
yeah, so
yeah.
it's a teddy bear that you turn inside out, and when you turn it inside out, it's more werewolfy. Um, and I had
Mm.
that. I had that. No, I've still got the bear. And had just the one for years, and then quite a while back, maybe 13, 14 years ago, I just did the eBay thing and got them all. So I have them all
All
I have
right.
them all knocking around somewhere, which I hope to give to my grandchildren one day. Make them horror nerds just like
Yeah,
me. Um, yeah,
yeah. Well, you gotta do it.
yeah, absolutely.
I know I've tried with my nieces and nephews. Um, so what film would you say scared you the most, and what was it that really got you about that film?
um, I think I'm gonna have to say Paranormal Activity and there may have been scarier films since, but Paranormal Activity is the first horror movie I can remember seeing where I had my big boy trousers on, and actually really,
Mm.
really feeling the tension of that movie. Um, and it's a really divisive movie, I think, because it is a lot of nothing. Um, but
Mm.
but for me, I watched it, and I think I watched it the right way, which was just on a laptop in the dark. Uh, and
Yeah.
I watched Paranormal Activity, and I'm sat there, and they've got this whole sort of plot and everything like that. But every night, obviously, for those who've seen it, it cuts to the nighttime where almost nothing's happening, and it starts off with nothing, and then just a little bit of something, and then just a little bit, and then just a little bit more and more. So every time you get to these nighttime scenes, you get this sudden edge of tension. And
Mm.
I just remember watching those movies and that particular movie. I actually really like the Paranormal Activity franchise, but I remember that was the specific one where I thought, I went to bed, turned the light on before I went upstairs. You know, I'm not really a lights on kind of guy. I
Yeah.
just sneak around the house in the dark usually. But that was one of the ones where I was like, maybe I'll just make sure there isn't a demon in the spare room.
Yeah.
There wasn't. There was no one in there.
I can understand how that would probably work better on a small screen and in that kind of
Mm,
environment because it's kind of made for something that you discover. It's like Blair Witch. I mean, I saw them both at the cinema and I found Blair Witch really scary. Wasn't I was slightly disappointed with Paranormal Activity, but I think that's just because it got massively hyped.
mm.
And so I dragged my poor husband along, who was not interested in watching it at all because I thought it was going to scare me so much. I would need him there to hang on to. But it didn't quite do that. But maybe it would have well, it definitely would have if I'd just been watching it on my laptop in the dark on my own. It would have scared the shit out of
Yeah,
me.
yeah.
So, has there ever been like horror films that have been a complete surprise to you? Like, it doesn't necessarily have to be in a good way, it could be in a bad way. Like, you were expecting it to be like really scary and it was just tedious, or it just came out of left field, you hadn't heard anything about it, watched it and loved it.
I think. Well, what I've got written down is Hereditary, because
Mm.
that's a movie where when you sit down and watch it, you it takes you by the hand, and I like it when horror does this. It takes you by the hand and it goes, "This is what's happening." It's all very obvious. Don't worry about it. And then it goes, and then the movie's not exactly where you were expecting it to be, and suddenly, um, it drops into this movie that, and it's become a bit old hat, I think now, but it drops into this movie that is about grief and the tension between a family and all that stuff, and it just like you know spoilers for the people listening, but in Hereditary, you're led to believe the creepy girl is going to do creepy things, and then she gets her head knocked off, and that's only about
Yes, that was quite surprising.
yeah, so 30 or 40 minutes into the film. So then, like I say, you're left with this movie that's about this family tension and this tension between a mother and a son, and then there is a supernatural element going on in the background, and it's one of the few films where I've actually been like really on the edge of my seat. Um, Although I mean I've just said two in a row there where it actually happened, but it is a rare case for me where I'm really like, oh my god, what's going to happen? And every time I've watched it since, it still has that effect on me. Because I think Tony Collette, to be fair, is so good in that you know,
She's amazing.
yeah, yeah, that it just yeah, it just the whole thing works. The whole cast is good, to be fair. But yeah, the whole thing works. And then when it finally ramps up towards the end, and it it's really scary, um, and gruesome, and you just like, oh my god. Um, and that's the great thing about some of the horror films. It's got that. A lot of people say it's got that relationship with comedy where there's a sort of build up of tension and then you get that release. And a good horror movie will just build the tension so much for you, and then when you finally get that release, it's like um, if you're really scared, you can almost be at the point of laughter because it does
Yeah.
something. And Hereditary does exactly that. It ramps up and ramps up until eventually it goes, right, now we're on. And you're going, ah!
Yeah, I mean, it feels like Ari Aster started something with that film, looking at grief and tying that into horror. I mean, I know it's been done before in other films, like what's that one from the 70s with Donald Sutherland? Don't Look Now,
Yeah,
you know. But grief seems to be the thing in horror at the
yeah,
moment,
yeah, yeah.
you
And
know.
it is awful. I mean, grief is
Mm,
awful. I mean, my dad died a few years ago, and it was horrible to go through. Um, but I think
mm,
for me, in terms of horror films, it's like it's getting old hat now. You know, because I think even before Hereditary, there was the Babadook, which is exactly the same thing. It's about grief and
mm,
depression, and it's like,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
but yeah,
I mean, the films that have come out this year that have touched on it have been very interesting, but we'll just have to see where it goes. These things can get a bit dull after a while, but I mean, I've always thought that it should be touched on more in zombie films because I think that's what I find scary about them is the fact that you've got to deal with the return of a loved one, which would be a tremendous joy, and then a tremendous pain because you couldn't live with them
yeah,
because they're going to eat your brains.
yeah, yeah. No, it's not good. I actually think probably one of the better moments for that is in Shaun of the Dead.
Mm,
When Sean's mum gets turned, and it's
yeah.
actually I mean, and his stepdad before that's quite emotional as well. But that's probably one of the few films where they actually do that with the zombies. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, yeah, you're right. They should do that more often.
So, what horror film do you love that no one else likes or talks about?
Um, the only thing I could come up with here, and the thing is, I know that Friday the 13th fans do like the movie, but it's mostly regarded as being very bad. Which is Jason X, where he goes to space.
I love Jason
Um,
X.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's mostly regarded as being a bad movie, and I think anyone who even likes it wouldn't sit there and go, "Yeah, this is a really great movie," because it's not. But everything about it is it's just really played tongue in cheek. It panders a bit to Friday the 13th fans, but it's also got this techno um, aspect to it, and it's also as I recall, full of a lot of puns. Um, you don't hear, as I say, I think it probably doesn't quite fit the category because I think most people will tell you that they actually do love Jason X, the same as you just said, but it's it's not a good movie. Um,
No, it's a fun movie.
it is good fun, and I mean, I think I suppose the worst thing about it is obviously it's Jason in space, which is like, you know, they didn't really need to do that, and it does take away from the franchise really, which well initially was quite grounded, but then eventually turned into um, I think Jason at one point fights someone with telekinesis, so you know it. I know that he does. I don't know why I was saying I think he does because
Mm,
Friday the 13th is my absolute jam. So um, yeah,
yeah,
that was it. That was the only one I could think of.
yeah. I think Jason Takes Manhattan's my favourite.
Yeah, Jason on a boat, essentially.
Yeah. Which horror film will you never watch again and why?
Um, there was a movie I think last year called The Coffee Table, which I think I put at the top of my list for last year, but I've no desire to ever see it again because it deals with a situation. I don't want to spoil the coffee table for people, but it deals with a situation that certainly as a parent, but I think anybody watching would absolutely hate. Um, and it's a movie that has this thing that happens, and then it just spends the whole movie just dripping in tension. Too much tension, and it's just As I say, I put it at the top of my list because it's very few films affect me, you know. But that one was like, this is great. This is what I want from a horror film. I've never need to see that again.
Who is your favourite all-time villain in horror films?
Oh, Jason Voorhees, without a doubt.
Mm,
Um, I I love the evolution. No, that's not a word. Evolution of that character. I like the sort of, famously he's not in the first one, um, but we get the sort of, I think it's 2, 3, and 4, and he sort of, they kill him in the fourth one, and then in the fifth one he's not in it, um, but he sort of is, but in him anyway. Don't worry about that. But by Jason 6, when they bring him back from the dead, um, it's really got I love Friday 6. Me, I think it's one of the best ones. He's got an absolute Terminator vibe, and at that point they give him the sort of absolute supernatural strength and stuff like that, and he's just it's just a killing machine. With it doesn't even feel like there's intent to it either. He just, you know, point him in a direction and away he goes. Um, but the great thing about watching Friday the 13th movies is, you're going to get fun and entertaining kills, which I think is what slashers often need. Um, you know,
yeah.
you can do it seriously. I think Halloween does a very good job of doing it seriously. But I think it's more interesting to do, you know, fun kills and give yourself a list of people to just be killed. Um, so I picked Jason for that. Plus it's iconic looking, um, that mask and all.
Mm,
Uh,
yeah, definitely.
yeah, I think he has to be my favorite. Um, I like the style of Ghostface, but technically it's not the same guy each time. So
No,
you know, so you can't really. I don't think
no.
you can really have it.
Um, I'm going to put you on the spot here. What's your favourite Jason kill?
Oh, it's the. It, it has to be the liquid nitrogen in Jason X. I love that one.
Yeah, it's a good one.
I do love that one.
Yeah, I can understand that. I can understand that. So, on the other end of the spectrum, who is your favourite fearless female? And that could be in the case of like a final girl or in just like a fearless performance. Because I'm putting this question in here because I genuinely think that horror is the best space for actresses, that they get amazing roles, especially in the last 10 years, and they're giving the most outstanding performances
Yeah, yeah,
that are not particularly getting recognised. But if I was an actress, I think I'd want to move into horror more than anything else because I know I'm going to get something that I can really get my teeth into.
absolutely. Yeah,
So,
yeah.
what would you think would be your favourite?
I've gone for Sarah Connor. As far as I'm concerned, the first Terminator is a horror film. Um,
Mm,
so Linda Hamilton as Sarah Connor, and if you want to just stick to that first film, she's just got the final girl thing totally down. She starts off absolutely innocent. She goes through the journey, and then towards the end, she's just a kick-ass chick. Sorry for saying chick.
mm.
It's not very.
No, I don't. I don't mind. I don't mind. I'm not going to. I'm not going to take offence to the word chick.
But yeah, she absolutely. She turns it around. Her and between her and Kyle Reese, he's the soldier at the start, and then at the end, she's saving him. I mean, she can't ultimately save him,
Mm,
but she she goes from fearing the Terminator to fucking crushing it, and
mm,
sequel wise, I think in the second one she's even she's an even stronger character. Although I don't really think you can rate the second one as a horror movie. Although there's some real nasty kills in the second one.
Mm.
People forget that, I think.
Oh
That
yeah.
Yeah, that
Mm.
T1000, especially when it jams the knife through the milk carton and then through the guy's head. Um, Maybe it is a horror film. Wonder if I could.
Horror adjacent for sure, but she definitely
Yeah,
kicks ass in that. I always thought that the sad thing about when they released that film was they gave away that Arnie was gonna be the good guy in it,
yeah, right, yeah,
and, you know, if they never released that in the trailers, that would have been such a plot twist.
yeah, yeah. I think back in those days, though, trailers were just like it wasn't like they are now. I think trailers can be more misleading these days. And it's interesting when you go in and go, "Oh, this is not what I expected." Whereas,
Mm.
you know, even in the '90s, they still had that guy doing Arnold Schwarzenegger is the Terminator, and you know,
I miss that guy.
this time he's the good guy. What?
You might as well have said that.
What?
Yeah, she definitely kicked ass.
Yeah, Sarah Connor's awesome.
Um, what horror subgenre do you think you connect with the most? Is it gonna be like slasher, folk, cosmic?
Just found footage count. If it counts, I'm choosing that.
Yeah, oh yeah,
Yeah,
100%.
yeah. I think found footage movies are my favorite genre by 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 a long way. I think, and I blame that on Paranormal Activity. Um,
Mm,
because I saw like you, I saw the Blair Witch at the cinema, and and the ending's quite affecting in that. But I remember being bored out of my
ugh,
brain, and it still bores the crap out of me now. Um, you know, I have to, I think, as a horror fan, sit here with Blair Witch and go, look, it's a legacy movie. Without that, we don't get all this. And I really think
mm.
that's fair to say. Um, but it bores the crap out of me even now. but I think, as a general rule, that found footage movies do this great thing. I think of obviously getting actors who are generally good, but you've never seen them before, so it's much easier to believe that they are real people in these situations. I
Mm,
mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not naive enough to believe that that's actually happening, but I think it adds to that level of realism that they're trying to get through. And I think it's not they're not always necessarily professionally done and stuff like that. And you know, not only that, I think the found footage genre for me is lent people a chance who might not have had a chance to make movies. It's given them a chance to make a horror movie, be it good, be it bad. I mean, going back to Paranormal Activity, I think it cost $15,000 to make. You know, and it made so much money on top of that, and it literally have just paid out for a special edition of the movie. Um, but yeah, I love that part of it too. Um, and I'd include in the found footage movies the sort of faux documentary ones. I quite like those too. Um, there's a movie
yeah.
called the Poughkeepsie Tapes, which is sort of it's like a documentary around found footage stuff, and I like that too. And Hell House LLC's that too as well, but they spend a lot more time in the found footage. That it's sometimes easy to forget it's supposed to be a documentary. Um, but yeah, found
Yeah.
footage. I've talked a lot there. Sorry.
No, that's okay. That's what you're on for. Would
Oh
you
yeah.
consider something like Ghost Watch to fit into that as well? I mean, I remember watching that when it was
Mm.
on telly and thinking, what the fuck? What have I just seen? Because it was very confusing. You
Yeah,
know, very confusing. Did you see it back in the day as well?
I actually didn't see it back in the day. Didn't see it until quite recently, a couple of years. I'd heard about it, but I'd never actually seen it. Um, and Ghost Watches has got a great backstory and all that. When you if you can pick up a special edition DVD of that or Blu-ray, then some of that's really great. But yeah, I would include that in that because it's like a faux situation, and I think the good thing about that is, and this is the opposite to what I've just said, is that had real people in it, but they were doing their jobs that you'd expect them to do. So it really worked. You know, Michael Parkinson's playing it straight as Michael Parkinson, and the others, the others like the guy from Red Dwarf. His name is Craig something.
Craig Charles.
Sarah Green and Craig Charles. There you go.
Yeah.
And they're just playing it straight down.
Mm.
This is a TV show that you're watching, and yet it devolves into this horror thing that again I think me and Michael. That's not the name of my co-host. Jeez Louise. Me and Matthew. I don't know who Michael is. Some guy who lives in my brain. But yeah, me and Matthew watched that, and you can see the legacy of that movie when you look at stuff that happened after, and you think, well, and I like that kind of thing. If you can look back
Mm.
at a movie and go, look, this is the horror genre has ended up here because of these milestones, and Ghostwatch is one of those. It's really good.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I mean, I think it just did something outstanding for the time because I remember being very confused because it was like, well, is this real or not? Because these are like TV presenters and that guy is in Red Dwarf and they wouldn't be lying to me because they're people off the telly. So, it was all very,
Yeah,
very
yeah.
confusing and scary. So that is a good one. And I kind of understand why you like that genre. I mean, it really allows new talent to come in because it can be so cheap to do. So
Hmm.
and you get interesting ideas. I mean, I don't know, host isn't quite, I guess, the same thing. It's more, well, that's probably got a new genre now, which is social media horror or something. But you know,
I'd count that as found footage.
you get a host.
You what you're watching real people doing real things. I think that
Yeah.
it's included in that, and I think we included in our found footage month. So
Oh well,
I
then
have
I'm
to.
glad because I think that one was a really good film. So
I was going to say there is one more found footage movie that isn't strictly horror. Um, that's really good called Chronicle. Um, I don't know if you've seen that, but it's about three kids get superpowers essentially,
yeah.
and it is sort of a horror movie because one of them certainly devolves into that sort of supervillain arc based
Mm,
upon living in an abusive house. Um, the only problem with Chronicle is that they start doing different camera angles
mm,
based on the fact that one of them's using his powers to have different cameras pointing, and they're just like, yeah,
mm.
it should just be the one thing. But anyway, that's a good movie.
Right, I might have to have a look at that one as well. Do remember seeing like adverts for it, but never got around to watching it.
Oh yeah,
Um, so what was the last horror film you watched, and did it work for you?
I watched a Japanese horror called Best Wishes for All, which was on Shudder.
Oh,
Um, Shout out to Shudder, by the way.
mm,
Um, uh, I nearly went off on a Shudder rant there. Don't worry, I'll bring it back around. Anyway, yeah. So I watched this movie, Best Wishes for All, because it had been recommended on a couple of while I was doom scrolling. You know what I mean?
mm,
I was doom
yeah.
scrolling, and I follow a lot of horror people, and a few people said, "Oh, you should watch this." So I was like, "Yeah, why not?" Um, and it it starts like it's going to be the best movie you've ever seen. Like
Mm.
like it's so weird and full of tension, and you're like, okay, but then it devolves into something else, and it eradicates the sort of first part of plot that you were watching, and goes into something else, and then it's just again. It's one of these movies that sort of is trying to make a point about society and stuff like that. And by the end of it, it just lost me. So it didn't really work for me at all. Um, I think I gave it a sort of middling review stars because the first bit was really great.
Mm.
But yeah, but I think at this point I am getting so bored of, oh look, it's what society's like. And I'm like, I don't care. Just give me a slasher.
Mm.
Um, or a good slasher at very least. Um, which I think at the moment the best we've got is Art the Clown, the Terrifier movies. Um, and those are incredibly gory. Um,
Mm.
sorry, I've gone off the question you asked me, but
Oh no,
yeah,
no, 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 that's fine. I haven't seen them yet. Hold my hands up. I haven't got around to it yet. Mainly because I'm not particularly good with clowns. Clowns and
ah,
dolls.
right.
So,
Well,
but my sister watched them and she quite enjoyed them. So I
he
think
is
I'll probably
really
get around
clowning
to
it
it.
up, though.
Mm,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, he's
but
really clowning it up. Um, Yeah, yeah. But yeah, best wishes to all. Like I say, I think I'd almost recommend it just for that first bit because it was so good.
mm,
But then it devolves, and then you go, nah, I'm not bothered about this movie anymore. Um,
yeah, I
so
think that's happening a lot
yeah,
lately. I think there's some good ideas in horror, some really good ideas, and but they're not quite landing it sometimes. Like I don't know if you'll disagree with me about this, but a violent nature. I thought when it was point of view of the killer, it was a really interesting idea. But then when it kind of goes towards the end and then it changes direction slightly, I thought, well, it's trying to be something different now, and that just goes back to a normal slasher film. And I think we're getting that a lot. We're getting some fantastic ideas, but they're not fully
yeah,
formed. But then I think they probably lead on to other people to take that kind of idea and run with it and make something really good. So that's
yeah,
what I'm hoping
yeah.
for anyway.
I think I think I agree with you in a violent nature. I liked it right up until the final girl is on her own, and then it just
Mm,
loses its steam.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
it proper peters out. Like oh, this was great, and then it's like, oh, now it's now it's nothing again. But
Mm,
I really enjoyed that movie. I think I gave it even maybe 4 or 5 stars because I think um, it was such a good idea, and I thought really well done. But and I couldn't really knock it off for that end bit. But I do agree with you. I think
mm,
it does start losing steam at the end. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah. Right. So, what are your top five favorite horror films of all time? I bet this is a difficult one. If you're anything like
Yeah,
me, it changes.
yeah, yeah. I was. I've. This was one I struggled with, and ultimately I settled on. I've settled on some of the movies that I would probably have my. This is the horror history thing. So these are the movies
Mm,
that I would watch over and over again and remember from a certain age, and having had them affect me. Anyway, that sort of build up to it. Anyway,
mm.
this first one isn't that. This was a new one I saw. I don't know if you're familiar with Evolution of Horror podcast.
Very familiar with
Um,
it, yeah.
oh, right, okay. I probably met you through that. Um, uh, anyway, I think a couple of years ago they did a home invasion thing. The season was home invasion, and I watched a movie
Mm.
called Lady in a Cage. Um, and it took me by so much surprise. Absolutely loved it. Immediately picked up a Blu-ray for it, because I think it's it's a movie that is violent. It's telling a story. It's got interesting characters. It's got one of the weirdest openings movies have got. I think it opens on roadkill for some reason, which almost feels irrelevant to the plot. Um, but for those people who haven't seen it, it's essentially a woman gets stuck in her own elevator, which is something akin to a cage, and then people home invade her home, and it's just like I say, really well acted. Really enjoyed it. Um, Made it onto my top five quite easily. Um, so yeah, that.
Yeah, I remember hearing
um,
the episode about that, and I've been meaning to watch it, but just haven't got around to it yet. So I'm going to have to put it on my list. One of the things I wanted to do about this podcast, it wasn't just I wanted to do it to connect with fellow horror fans, but also to pick up some tips on what's great out there that I'm missing out on. So thank you. I'm definitely
right,
keeping that one in
right.
mind.
Okay, well, you've probably seen my top four, so but we'll see, eh? So in at number
Maybe.
four, I've got The Fly from 1986. Um, Jeff Goldblum, that one.
Mm.
Now, as I say, this movie I would add as part of my history of horror movies. Things I can remember that stand out to me as me really enjoying, but also it feeling like a leap forward in horror for me. Because for those people who haven't seen The Fly, it's very very gory. Um, it's but more body horror, should I say, than it is absolute. Sorry, tiny finger. Um, for those of you listening at home, I've got a tiny finger on a stick that I'm playing with for no reason. What was I saying? The Fly. Yeah. So for me, that was my first step into, I think, what counts as real, proper body horror. Um, but not only that, people talk about elevated horror like it's a new thing, but something like The Fly sits exactly there because it is about, you know, what it's like to live with the terminal disease, or what it's like to, you know, struggle with life and, identity and stuff like that. It's all in there, and I love to see Goldbluming about. Um,
Don't we all?
yeah, and I've always loved Gina Davis in things. You know, give me a League of Their Own any day. I'll watch that any day. Um, So yeah, The Flight. It's one of those movies that I can just watch relentlessly, never get bored of it. Um, yeah, love it.
Yeah,
Um,
it is a great one.
yeah. So let's see. So do you want number three?
Yep.
Um, Three is Scream,
No.
'96.
Yeah.
I talked a bit about it, but I think, like I said earlier, Scream's the point where I went, maybe this genre's for me. Um, because it's because I think the reason that Scream works, and this is why why it was popular, is because it goes, horror films are real and you're in one.
Mm.
Um, you know, it, it does that pop culture thing where you can go, I know these things, or I can, and it wears its heart on its sleeve. In in terms of that, even so much as telling you what the rules of a horror film are in the horror film, like, don't do these things, you know. And we all knew it, but those things have become, you know, more part, I think, of the sort of horror zeitgeist, as it were. I don't know if I'm using that word right, but whatever. Um, like the rule. We all know what the rules are now.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
that's it, and but because we weren't connected back then like we are now, we were just saying it in our little friend groups, like, "Well, you don't go into the cellar, that's stupid," and, "Oh, you don't wanna have sex because you'll only survive if you're a virgin," and we were saying these in our little friend groups, but because we didn't have social media or anything like that, we didn't know that everybody else was saying it as well, so when he
yeah,
put that on screen, we're just like, "Oh, shit." We're all doing it, and it was just amazing. I remember everybody all my friends just, like, losing their minds over that. Such a good film.
yeah. So it's amazing. We found on our podcast that a lot of people's kicking off journeys were Scream.
Mm,
Um, it's it it's interesting that it's played that part in a lot of people's lives. So yeah, Scream. Now number two, I've got An American Werewolf in London, um, which I attribute to my dad. He sort of made me watch it because his sort of thing was it's actually quite it's a bit funny.
mm.
Um, so I thought. But by the way, when I first watched it, I totally disagree. It was not funny at all. Um, I tell you what, when the Nazi werewolves break into his house in that dream, oh my god, that is so scary. That's probably the scariest bit of the film. But now I can watch it and enjoy the comedy of it and enjoy. I find it infinitely quotable. I have a friend who I do quote it with, um, and you know, from an effects point of view, that werewolf transformation is just spot on. Again, I could just watch it over and over, and I think you know, to me, that's my standard for a top 10 in movies. That if it's something that I can rewatch all the time, like it'd be easy to say, you know, the greatest top five horrors of all time. I could pick that out easy, but I think to me, it's the movies that I would just sit and rewatch. Um, and I think American Werewolf set the standard for werewolf movies. It set the standard for transformations, and I always thought the really interesting thing about this transformation and something that I think they've done that they follow on with now is that the transformation is incredibly painful. You know, I think sometimes people I think miss the spot on that, but I think the fact of the matter is your bones are snapping and changing, and you've got hair being ripped, your skin and bleh. I don't fancy being a werewolf, to be honest. Or do I? No, okay. Maybe a team wolf. I'd quite like to be good at basketball or some sort of sport. Um,
I wanna do a funky dance.
yeah, yeah, that's true. Yeah,
Mm.
and get the girl. Oh, I'll take it all. All right, I will be a team wolf, but I don't want to be an American werewolf. I mean, I'm not American anyway. I'll just be a regular werewolf. English werewolf in America. Oh, make that film. Uh, anyway, so yeah, that one. My top one. Anyone who knows me, anyone who's listening to this who knows me already, it's Jaws. Um, Jaws is my top horror film of all time. Now, some people are going to argue with me that it's not a horror film. Those people are wrong. Um, and
They are wrong, it is a horror film.
yeah, it is. People have argued with me, and my thing is always like, I tell you what, like, swim out to the sea where you can't see your feet, and tell me you don't hear that theme tune. Um,
Mm,
and most people do because that movie had an effect on people. Um,
it sure did.
yeah, yeah,
Those people were not around in the '70s. They didn't see all the people not going in the water.
yeah, absolutely. Yes. Well, I think for me, one of the good things about Jaws, and I don't want to talk loads about the movie because I always end up not really saying anything because I love every part of it, every bit of it, the acting, the story. Considering it's a 2 hour movie, and I prefer a tight 90 myself, it just goes in no time at all. You know, you get two kills
Mm,
within the sort of first 12 minutes of watching the film. Um, and it's well done in that case because anytime anybody's in the water, you're like that. Um, yeah, which is nice. Um, what else was I going to say? Yeah, I think the good thing about Jaws fans is as well that a lot of us just became obsessed with sharks. Um, and you know, it has had that good effect on me of learning things about sharks, and then I enjoy a good shark movie, but I like to know the fact that you know I wouldn't. The likelihood of getting killed by a shark is very, very slim. You're more likely to die by a vending
mm,
machine falling on you than you are to be killed by a shark. So, knowing those things, and it's easy to be scared by nature, but I think knowing that it's all part of an ecosystem, and you know, and Peter Benchley himself, who wrote the books, became an avid sort of part of the shark preservation thing, and he was really into all that. So I think for me, Jaws has done more for me than just it being a great horror movie. It's helped me, learn a bit more about nature in terms of that. But it's just a movie that I can put on and I will watch it at least once a year, and that I mean at least because not me, it'll probably be 3 or 4 times a year, I reckon. And any time I see a cinema release, I'm there because I just love it. It's my favorite film of all time. It wouldn't be on my just horror list. It would be on my of all time list. I just absolutely love it. So yeah, Jaws, number one, Jaws.
well, I think that's a very good choice, and I'm going to say something that is going to be quite controversial now. Not with you, I don't think, but with probably if anybody listens to this podcast, probably a few people out there. Um, I think pound for pound, even though it's not my favourite film, Jaws is the best film ever made. I
Wow.
think it's I think it's probably perfection in the way it's made, in the way it builds, and like you say, the acting and the characters and the dialogue. Just little things like the kid copying his dad's
Mm.
mannerisms at dinner. Little touches like that. I think it's a work of genius, and I know other people out there are going to say no, it's Citizen Kane or it's The Godfather or something like that, but I genuinely think it's Jaws, and it changed the landscape of films forever as well by becoming the first proper summer blockbuster. So
Yeah,
that's my opinion anyway.
yeah. I think you're onto something. I mean, even I don't agree with that. Um, I mean, personally, for me, it's my favorite and best film of all time. But I think there are other films out there that I probably would, if I had to be really objective about it. But I don't have to be, do I? I don't have to be objective right now
No,
in
you
this
don't have to be.
podcast. I could just say, look, Jaws is great. If you haven't watched it, you should, and don't argue with us about whether it's good or not because it is. Um, I think lovely.
Well, Mark, thank you very much for coming on the show. Have you got anything you want to push, your podcast, anything else going on you want to talk about before you go?
I suppose I should plug my own podcast. Really. Um,
Yeah.
okay, fair enough. Um, me and my me and my co-host Matthew, not Michael. We don't know who he is. Me and my co-host Matthew have a podcast called Creative Psychopaths, where each week we review a horror movie and give you a recommendation. We usually have a bit before the horror movie that is often, a bit of chat. Sometimes it's another movie review. Um, but yeah, you can find it in all the places that you get podcasts. And, it's interesting. And if you if you like this and you want to come and guest with us and talk about a movie you like, then that's the thing you can do too. Bev's been on a couple of times, and we've we've had a good time. Um, we watched Raw, didn't we? We both watched Raw without Michael or whatever his name is.
We did.
Uh,
Yeah, we watched Raw and Poltergeist. We talked about as well.
we we did watch Poltergeist. It was a lot less scary than I remember it being.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, creative psychopaths. Mm.
Yes, everybody go and listen to it. It's a really fun show to listen to. Well, Mark, I'm doing it
Yeah,
now.
you don't even know who I am. Michael, Matthew, John, could be anybody.
It's getting late in the day and it's very hot.
My brain.
Well, thank you for coming on. It's been really wonderful to hear your lovely story through horror, your horror history. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much for having me on.
Huge thanks to Mark Reid for being such a brilliant guest and sharing his horror history with us. It was an absolute pleasure having him on the show. If you were a fan of Creative Psychopaths podcast, you'll know how much heart and humour he brought to every episode. While the podcast has sadly come to an end, the good news is there's still episodes out there, so if you haven't already, go and give them a listen. There's a whole archive of horror sandwich goodness waiting for you. At the end of each monthly episode, I'll be sharing a recommendation. Something I think that you spooky guys might enjoy. This month, it's the brilliant Discover the Horror podcast. I stumbled across this a couple of months ago and I'm officially hooked. The hosts have a deep, infectious knowledge of their genre and they're brilliant at helping you uncover hidden gems and going back to old films with fresh eyes. You can find more info on their website and trust me, it's well worth the dive. And before we go, a little plug for the company I work for, or Jigsaw Puzzles. Yes, I make jigsaw puzzles for a living. And if you're a puzzle fan and you're a horror fan, we have a wonderful range of jigsaw puzzles just for you. Des Skin has a wonderful horror line going back looking at Hammer and Abacus films, and we have a beautiful range by a company called Alchemy. They're creepy, beautiful, and perfect for a cozy night in with a cup of tea and a touch of terror. You can find them at alljigsawpuzzles.co.uk. Next month, I'll be joined by my good friend and colleague, Linda Munden. She's a horror fanatic, and I can't wait to share her journey with you. If you'd like to get in touch, share your own history, or just say hi, you can find me on Instagram at myhorrorhistory.pod or you can drop me an email at myhorrorhistory.pod@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you. Well, thanks for listening, and until next month, stay spooky, stay curious, and keep sharing your horror history. Bye.